Her tribe marked her with ashes and left her almost naked, but one man gave her his shirt. She had lived in the tribe all her life, following its rules the same way her mother and grandmother had before her. The land was dry and wide, and the people believed their traditions were the only thing keeping order in a hard world. From childhood, she was taught that the elders never made mistakes and that questioning them brought trouble. She believed this even when some rules felt heavy on her heart. She was known as a quiet woman. She worked, helped others, and stayed away from arguments. People said she listened more than she spoke. No one would have guessed that one day she would stand in the center of the village, surrounded by angry faces, while her whole life changed in a single morning. The problem began with a rumor. It started small, whispered between two women while they worked. By evening, it had grown into something darker. By the next day, it had reached the ears of the elders. No one came to ask her what was true. No one came to hear her side. In the tribe, once the elders believed something, the matter was already decided. She was called to the gathering ground before sunrise. The air was cold and the sky was still gray. People stood in a wide circle, some curious, some nervous, others already judging her with hard eyes. She felt their stares on her skin as she walked forward. Her legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stand straight. The eldest man spoke first. His voice was calm, but his words were heavy. He talked about rules, about purity, about how the tribe survived only because everyone obeyed. Then he spoke her name. When she heard it, her chest tightened. He said she had broken trust. He said she had brought dishonor. Each sentence felt like a stone placed on her shoulders. She tried to speak. Her voice came out low and shaking. She said she was innocent. She said the story was not true. But her words were swallowed by silence. The elders did not respond. In their eyes, her denial meant nothing. Another elder stepped forward with a bowl filled with cold ashes from the sacred fire. The ashes were gray and lifeless. They had once been warm, but now they meant shame. Two women were ordered to hold her arms. Their hands trembled as they touched her, not because they were cruel, but because they were afraid to disobey. The ashes were pressed onto her skin. They marked her face, her arms, and her shoulders. The dust clung to her like a shadow. In the tribe, ashes meant separation. They meant a person was no longer protected, no longer welcome. Then came the part she feared most. Her ceremonial cloth, which showed her place in the tribe, was taken away. It was not done to mock her, but to send a message. Without it, she was no longer one of them. She was given only a thin covering, not enough to protect her from the cold or the long walk ahead. The crowd watched in silence. Some people looked away. Others stared as if trying to convince themselves this was necessary. She searched the faces for someone she knew well, someone who might speak for her. She saw none. Even those who had once laughed with her now stood still, afraid that kindness might turn against them. The elder raised his hand and the decision was spoken. She was to leave the land before the sun fully rose. If she returned, she would face worse punishment. The words were final. As she was led to the edge of the village, her thoughts became slow and heavy. This was the place where she had learned to walk, where she had worked beside others, where she had believed she belonged. Now it felt distant, as if it had never truly been hers. At the boundary stones, the women who had held her arms let go. One of them whispered, "I am sorry," so quietly that no one else could hear. The other woman could not even look at her. Then they turned and walked away. She stood alone. The sun was rising now, spreading light over the land, but she felt no warmth. The ashes on her skin mixed with tears she did not remember crying. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold onto what little dignity she had left. For a moment she thought of running back, of shouting that they were wrong, but she knew it would change nothing. The tribe's rules were stronger than truth, so she turned away and took her first step into exile. The land beyond the village felt unfamiliar, even though she had seen it many times before. Without the safety of the tribe, Every sound felt louder. The wind brushed against her skin, reminding her how unprotected she was. She walked slowly, unsure where she was going, only knowing she could not stop. With each step, memories followed her. She remembered her mother's voice, teaching her how to work and how to survive. She remembered nights around the fire, stories told by elders who now rejected her. Those memories hurt more than the cold. She wondered how quickly a life could be erased. Yesterday, she was a member of the tribe. Today, she was nothing to them. As the sun climbed higher, her strength began to fade. She had eaten little the day before. Fear and shock had drained her. Still, she kept moving because stopping felt like giving up. Behind her, the village grew smaller until it was only a shape on the horizon. Ahead of her was uncertainty, danger, and loneliness. She did not know that this painful beginning would one day lead to something different. At that moment, all she knew was loss. She walked on, carrying ashes on her skin and silence in her heart, unaware that somewhere on this long road, a simple act of kindness would change everything. She walked until her feet felt numb and her thoughts became slow. The land stretched wide in front of her, empty and quiet. There were no familiar paths anymore, no voices calling her name. Every step took her farther from the only life she had ever known. The ashes on her skin felt heavy, not because of their weight, but because of what they meant. The morning air was cold. A light wind moved across the open ground, touching her bare arms and making her shiver. She pulled the thin cloth closer around herself, but it offered little comfort. Still, she kept walking. She did not know where she was going. She only knew that she could not turn back. As the sun climbed higher, the cold slowly faded, replaced by a dry heat. Her throat felt tight and her mouth was dry. She had no water with her. In the tribe, food and water were shared, always nearby. Now, even the simplest things felt far away. She searched the land with tired eyes, hoping to see a stream, a tree, or anything that might help her rest. Her legs ached, but stopping felt dangerous. She had heard stories about what happened to those who wandered alone. Fear pushed her forward. Each sound made her turn her head. The cry of a bird, the movement of grass in the wind, everything felt like a warning. As she walked, her mind replayed the moment she was sent away. The circle of faces, the silence, the way no one spoke for her. She tried to understand how things had changed so quickly. Just days ago, she was part of the tribe. Now she was an outsider, marked and unwanted. She thought about the elders and their rules. They believed order mattered more than people. They believed punishment protected the tribe. But as she walked alone under the open sky, she wondered who protected her. By midday, her strength began to fade. Her steps became slower and her breathing grew heavier. She stopped near a large rock and sat down carefully. The ground was warm beneath her, and for a moment she closed her eyes. Her head felt light and dark spots danced behind her eyelids. She forced herself to stay awake. Sleeping out in the open felt unsafe. She looked around again, hoping for help that she knew might not come. In the distance, she thought she saw a line of trees. The sight gave her a small push of hope. Trees often meant shade and sometimes water. She stood up slowly and continued walking toward them. The distance felt longer than it looked. Her feet dragged against the ground and her body felt heavy. Every few steps, she had to pause and steady herself. When she finally reached the trees, relief washed over her. The shade cooled her skin, and the air felt slightly softer there. She leaned against a tree trunk and took deep breaths. The bark was rough, but it felt solid and real. For a moment, she allowed herself to rest. Nearby, she found a small pool of water left behind by recent rain. It was not much, but it was enough. She knelt carefully and drank slowly, afraid of making herself sick. The water tasted plain, but to her, it felt like a gift. She washed some of the dust from her hands and face, though the ashes remained dark and stubborn. As the afternoon passed, she heard distant sounds. Voices. Her heart jumped. She moved closer to the edge of the trees and looked out carefully. A group of people were walking along a rough road not far away. They were strangers, dressed differently from her tribe. For a moment, she felt hope rise inside her. Maybe they would help her. Maybe they would listen. She stepped forward, raising her hand slightly. But when they noticed her, their faces changed. Their steps slowed and their eyes went to the ashes on her skin. They whispered to each other. One of them shook his head. Another pulled back as if afraid. No one came closer. Without a word, they moved away, choosing distance over kindness. She stood there, frozen, watching them leave. The rejection hurt more than she expected. It was not loud or cruel, but it was clear. The ashes marked her as someone to avoid. She lowered her hand and stepped back into the shadows of the trees, feeling smaller than before. As evening approached, the light began to change. The sky softened into warm colors, but she felt no comfort in it. Night meant colder air and deeper fear. She needed shelter, but she had none. She searched the area and found a shallow space between rocks where the wind was weaker. It was not safe, but it was better than nothing. She gathered dry leaves and grass to sit on. Her body was tired beyond words. When she sat down, she realized how badly her legs were shaking. Hunger pressed against her stomach. She had not eaten since the day before. In the tribe, meals were simple but regular. Now, the thought of food felt like a distant dream. She tried to ignore the pain and focus on breathing. As darkness fell, the world grew quiet. The sounds of night filled the air, unfamiliar and unsettling. She wrapped her arms around herself and rocked slightly, not from fear alone, but from the need to feel alive. Her thoughts turned inward. She wondered if this was how her life would end, alone, forgotten, punished for something she did not do. Tears slipped down her face, mixing with dirt and ash. She did not wipe them away. She had no reason to hide her pain anymore. She remembered the woman who whispered sorry at the edge of the village. That small moment stayed with her. It reminded her that not everyone believed she deserved this fate. The memory gave her a small spark of strength. She told herself she would survive the night. She told herself that tomorrow might bring something different. Even if she did not believe it fully, the thought kept her from breaking. The night grew colder and her body curled tighter. Sleep came in short, restless moments. Each time she woke, fear returned quickly. Still, the hours passed. When the sky finally began to lighten again, she opened her eyes. She was still alive. Her body ached and her future was unclear, but she had made it through the night. She stood up slowly, brushing leaves from her clothes. The ashes were still there, but something inside her had shifted. She had been cast out, rejected, and ignored, but she was still standing. With weak legs but a steady heart, she stepped back onto the road. She did not know that this road would soon bring her face to face with a stranger, whose simple kindness would change the direction of her life. For now, she walked on, carrying pain, hope, and the quiet strength of someone who refused to disappear. The road stretched ahead of her, quiet and dusty, with no clear end in sight. The morning light was soft, but her body felt heavy from the night before. Each step hurt, yet she kept moving. She had learned that stopping for too long allowed fear to grow. Walking, even slowly, helped her mind stay focused. Her thoughts drifted between past and present. She remembered how life once felt predictable, how each day followed the same pattern. Now everything was uncertain. Still, something inside her refused to give up. She did not know why. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the simple wish to live. The sun rose higher and the road became warmer beneath her feet. She passed dry fields and scattered stones. The land looked empty, but she knew better now. People existed out there, just not close enough to help. She wondered if all of them would turn away like the others had. By late morning, her strength began to fail again. Her vision blurred at the edges and her steps lost rhythm. She slowed down, leaning forward slightly as she walked. She told herself to reach the next bend in the road, then rest, just a little farther. That was when she heard footsteps behind her. At first she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. She stopped and listened. The sound came again, steady and real. Her heart beat faster. Fear returned quickly. She stepped to the side of the road, unsure whether to hide or keep walking. A man came into view, walking alone, carrying a small bag over his shoulder. He looked tired, like someone used to long days of hard work. His clothes were simple and his face showed lines shaped by sun and effort. He did not rush. His steps were calm. When he saw her, he slowed down. She felt the familiar tightness in her chest. She waited for the look of fear, the quick turn away, the silence. She lowered her eyes, ready for rejection again, but it did not come. The man stopped a few steps away. He did not stare at the ashes on her skin. He did not step back. His voice, when he spoke, was gentle. "Are you all right?" he asked. The question surprised her. It had been so long since anyone asked. She tried to answer, but her throat felt dry and no sound came out. She nodded slightly, though it was not true. He noticed her shaking hands and the thin cloth she held around herself. Without a word, he set his bag down. He removed his shirt slowly, as if giving her time to understand what he was doing. Then he held it out to her. "For warmth," he said simply. She stared at the shirt, unsure what to do. It was clean but worn, clearly important to him. No one had given her anything since she was sent away. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry out. She reached forward carefully, afraid the moment might disappear. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, weak and unused. She took the shirt and wrapped it around her shoulders. The cloth was warm from his body, and it felt heavier than the thin covering she had worn. It was more than fabric. It was protection. It was dignity. The man nodded, as if this was nothing special. He picked up his bag again and gestured toward the road. "There's a small town not far from here," he said. "You shouldn't be alone out here." She hesitated. Trust did not come easily anymore. But something about him felt different. He did not ask questions. He did not demand explanations. He simply stood there waiting. She walked beside him slowly at first. They did not speak for a while. The sound of their footsteps filled the space between them. She focused on breathing, on staying upright. The shirt helped block the wind and her shaking eased. After some time he spoke again. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said, "but if you need help, I can walk with you." Those words stayed with her. Walk with you. No one had said that to her before. In her tribe, people walked together only when rules allowed it. This was different. This was a choice. They continued down the road. The town came into view slowly, buildings rising from the flat land. She felt a mix of fear and relief. Towns meant people. People meant judgment, but they also meant food, water, and shelter. At the edge of the town, the man stopped. "I work nearby," he said. "I can help you find a place to rest." She nodded again. Words still felt hard, but her heart felt lighter than it had in days. As they entered, some people noticed her. A few looked curious. A few noticed the ashes. She felt herself tense, ready to pull away. But the man walked beside her, steady and calm. His presence changed how others looked at her. No one spoke harshly. No one pushed her away. He spoke to a woman outside a small building. The woman listened carefully, her eyes moving from the man to her. She did not look afraid. She did not look angry. "She needs rest," the man said, "and food." The woman nodded and stepped aside. "She can sit here," she said. They helped her onto a bench. Someone brought water. She drank slowly, feeling strength return bit by bit. The ashes still marked her, but for the first time they did not define the whole moment. The man stood nearby, quiet. After a while she looked up at him. "Why?" she asked softly. He understood the question. "Because someone should," he replied. That answer stayed with her long after that day. She did not know it yet, but this simple kindness marked the turning point of her journey. For the first time since exile, she felt something other than fear. She felt hope. She stayed seated on the bench while the sounds of the town moved around her. People passed by, some busy, some curious, but no one pushed her away. The woman who had offered the bench returned with a small bowl of food. It was simple, but the smell alone made her realize how hungry she was. She thanked the woman quietly and began to eat slowly, careful not to rush. Each bite brought a little strength back into her body. Her hands stopped shaking as much, and the tight feeling in her chest began to ease. She could feel the warmth of the shirt around her shoulders, and it made her feel safer than she had felt in days. The man stayed nearby, not too close, not too far. He watched the road, as if giving her space while still making sure she was not alone. She noticed that he did not seek attention for what he had done. He spoke only when needed and listened more than he talked. After she finished eating, the woman returned again with a cloth and a small bowl of water. "You can clean your face if you want," she said gently. The woman did not touch her. She did not rush her. She simply placed the items beside her and stepped back. That small respect meant more than words. She dipped the cloth into the water and slowly wiped her face. Dust and tears came away, but the ashes stayed. They were pressed deep into her skin, as if reminding her of where she came from. Still, cleaning herself helped her feel human again. As the afternoon passed, more women from the town came by. They spoke softly, offering kind looks instead of questions. One brought bread. Another brought a blanket. No one asked why she was marked. No one demanded her story. They helped because they saw need, not because they wanted answers. The man spoke to a few people quietly. She did not hear everything he said, but she noticed how they listened to him. It seemed he was known there, trusted. That made her feel calmer. Later, the woman who had first helped her returned and said there was a small room where she could rest for the night. "It's not much," the woman said, "but it's quiet." She felt tears rise again, this time from relief. She nodded, unable to speak. They helped her stand. Her legs were weak but stronger than before. The walk to the room was short. Inside, there was a mat on the floor and a window that let in light. It was simple, but to her, it felt like safety. She sat down slowly and wrapped the blanket around herself. For the first time since leaving the tribe, she allowed her body to relax. The tension she had been holding broke, and quiet tears fell onto her hands. The woman placed a hand on her shoulder for a brief moment. "You are safe here tonight," she said. When the woman left, the man remained at the doorway. "I'll be nearby," he said. "Rest." She looked at him, unsure how to express what she felt. "I won't forget this," she said softly. He nodded once, then stepped away. As evening came, the town grew quieter. The sounds outside softened. She lay down on the mat, staring at the ceiling. Her body felt tired in a deep way, but her mind stayed awake. She thought about the tribe, about the elders, about how easily they had erased her place among them. For a moment, anger rose in her chest. Not loud anger, but heavy and sad. She wondered if they ever thought about her after she left, or if they believed she deserved whatever happened next. She turned onto her side and pulled the blanket closer. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future that did not include returning. The thought scared her, but it also felt freeing. The next morning, she woke to soft light coming through the window. Her body still ached, but she felt stronger. She sat up slowly, listening. The town was waking up. Voices, footsteps, the sound of life continuing. She stepped outside. The woman greeted her again and offered more food. The man was there too, preparing to leave for work. He paused when he saw her. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Better," she replied. This time her voice was steadier. He smiled slightly. "Good." Over the next few days, she stayed in the town. She helped where she could, cleaning, carrying water, small tasks that made her feel useful again. No one treated her like a burden. Slowly, the way people looked at her changed. The ashes were still there, but they were no longer the first thing others saw. One evening, a woman offered to help wash the ashes away completely. She hesitated at first. The ashes had marked her shame, but they also told her story. Still, she agreed. The water was warm. As the ashes finally faded, she watched them disappear, feeling a strange mix of sadness and release. When her skin was clean, she barely recognized herself. She looked tired, but she also looked alive. That night she sat outside and watched the sky darken. The man joined her briefly, sitting at a distance. "You're strong," he said. She shook her head slightly. "I was just surviving." "Sometimes that's the same thing," he replied. His words stayed with her. She knew she could not stay in the town forever without making a choice. She needed to decide what kind of life she wanted now. The tribe had taken her past, but it did not have to take her future. As she looked at the stars, she realized something important. The kindness she had received was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, steady, and real. It had carried her through the hardest part of her journey. She did not know where the road would lead next. But she knew she would keep walking, this time, not alone in spirit, even if she walked by herself. And that made all the difference. The days slowly turned into weeks, and the town began to feel less strange to her. At first, she woke every morning unsure of where she was, her body still expecting fear. But each day, nothing bad happened. People greeted her with small smiles. Some nodded. Some spoke kindly. No one reminded her of the ashes that were once on her skin. She worked where she could. It was never heavy work, just small tasks that mattered. She cleaned spaces, helped prepare food, carried water, and watched children when asked. These simple acts gave her something she had lost for a long time, a sense of purpose. Each task reminded her that she was still useful, still part of the world. At night, she often sat alone and thought about her past. The memories did not disappear. They returned quietly, especially when the town grew silent. She remembered the land of her tribe, the fires, the songs, and the faces of people she once trusted. Some memories made her sad, others made her angry, but slowly the pain softened. She learned that healing did not come all at once. It came in small pieces. The man who had given her his shirt continued his life as before. He worked long hours and passed through the town often. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they only exchanged a look of understanding. He never reminded her of what he had done. He never acted like a hero. That made his kindness feel even more real. One day, before leaving for work, he stopped and placed something in her hands. It was a simple piece of cloth, neatly folded. "For you," he said. She opened it and saw it was a new shirt, clean and warm. Her eyes filled again, but this time she smiled. "Thank you," she said. He nodded and walked away. As time passed, she realized she no longer needed to stay hidden in the town. People accepted her as she was. Some even began to ask about her skills, about what she knew. She spoke carefully at first, but slowly her voice grew stronger. She decided to stay. She found a small place of her own, nothing more than a room with a door and a window, but it was hers. She arranged it simply. A mat, a blanket, and a small space to sit. Every time she entered, she felt peace instead of fear. The tribe became a distant memory. She no longer dreamed of returning. She understood now that belonging was not about where you were born, but where you were treated with respect. Months later, a woman arrived at the town in poor condition, tired and scared. People whispered, unsure how to help. When she saw the woman, something moved inside her. She remembered the road, the hunger, the silence. She stepped forward without hesitation. She brought water. She spoke softly. She stayed close. The woman looked at her with the same fear she once carried. In that moment, she understood the power of kindness from the other side. That became her path. Over time, more people came through the town carrying pain, loss, or rejection. She helped where she could, not because she was asked, but because she remembered what it felt like to be ignored. She did not judge. She did not question. She simply helped. People began to notice. They did not call her special or important, but they trusted her. They listened when she spoke. They came to her when someone needed care. And slowly she became a quiet strength within the town. One evening, as the sun set, she saw the man again. He looked older now, more tired but still steady. They sat a short distance apart, watching the sky change color. "You've built something here," he said. She smiled. I didn't plan to. Sometimes the best things aren't planned, he replied. She thought about the moment on the road, about the shirt, about the simple question he had asked. She realized that one small act had changed everything, not because it saved her instantly, but because it reminded her she mattered. I hope you know, she said, what you did that day. He shrugged gently. I only did what I could, she nodded. That was enough. Years passed. Her hair showed signs of age, her steps became slower, but her heart remained strong. The town grew, changed, welcomed new people. And through it all she stayed. Sometimes when the wind moved just right, she remembered the ashes, not with shame but with clarity. They were part of her story, not the end of it. She had been cast out. She had been marked. She had been left with nothing. But she had walked forward. And in that walk, she found something greater than what she lost: dignity, purpose, and the truth that one act of kindness can carry a person from the edge of despair into a life worth living. Her story was never written down. No songs were made about her, but it lived on in quiet ways, in the people she helped, in the compassion she shared, and in the reminder that even in the hardest moments, humanity can still shine through.